Welcome everyone. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. This particular lesson is entitled Dividing Monomials, so let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to move this over here and let's okay, so you see we have a lot to get through, so let's just go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're looking at a 5-minute check, and so basically we've gone over this in class, so you should be able to answer these with no problem. All right, so you're going to determine whether negative 5x squared is a monomial. Explain your reasoning, so answer yes or no. All right, next question. Determine whether x cubed minus y cubed is a monomial. Explain your reasoning, yes or no. So again, we went over these, so these should be very easy to answer. Okay, here we're going to simplify. Again, another one we did in class. Okay, now you're going to simplify that one. Please feel free to pause anytime you need to. Okay, here find the area of a parallelogram. The area of a parallelogram, the formula is A equals B times H. So base times height. Okay, so again, we went over that in class as well. And then this one is what is the product. So again, we're looking at the rules from yesterday. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at product of powers. Okay, so we talked about that. Don't forget the rules for your numbers. They haven't changed. So you're going to answer all of those. Okay, so what we did previously is we multiplied monomials, okay, and that's a separate video. And now what we're going to be doing is finding the quotient of two monomials, and we are going to simplify expressions that contain negative or zero exponents. So let's move on to that. Okay, so of our new vocabulary, we're going to be talking about zero exponent. We're going to talk about negative exponent. And then the last one here is order of magnitude. We don't actually do that in this class, so we'll just skip that. Okay, so here is your first formula. Really, all you need here is this part. And basically what it says is that your bases are the same and you're dividing. You're just going to subtract the exponents. It should look similar to the previous lesson where when the bases were the same, when we were multiplying, we added the exponents. Now we're going to subtract, okay? And then they give you a couple of examples with numbers. So you do 11 minus 8, which is c to the third, and 5 minus 2, which is r to the third. And keep in mind, all of this would be on the top part of the fraction, okay? Now, here's one. So basically what you're going to see is we're going to simplify this expression. You're always going to assume that x and y are not equal to 0 because you don't know how to work with that yet. When you get to calculus and learn to integrate, you learn to fix some of that, these kinds of things, okay? So here you go. And all they did was they separated the x's from the y's so that you could put them together and see how easy that works out. So now what you do here is you're going to subtract. Remember, we're dividing. The bases are the same, so we are subtracting our exponents. So here you have 7 minus 6, and then here you have 12 minus 3. Okay, and that's the quotient of powers rule. Okay, so then when you do that, 7 minus 6 is 1. Remember, we don't write the 1. We know it's 1 if we don't write another number. And then 12 minus 3 is 9. So it's simplified. And so there your answer. So this simplifies to this. Okay, moving on. Okay, now here is one for you to do. Again, we've covered this in class, so you should be able to breeze right through this answer with no problem. Okay, so I'm going to skip over there. And then here, now we're doing power of a quotient. We worked with this previously where when it was multiplied and it was together, you separated it out. By the same token, if it's divided and it's raised to the same power, you can separate it out. So as you see, you had 3/5 raised to the 4th power, so you separated them out. Here you had r over t raised to the 5th power, and you separated it out. Keeping in mind that the numbers a and b can't be 0, okay? And m has to be an integer. So we're going to go ahead with that one. Okay, and so now here's an example. First one we're going to do together. We did this one in class as well already. And so what you did is you notice that they separated the top from the bottom. That's power of a quotient. And then once you did that, you raised each one of these to the third power, even if it already had an exponent, because then you're going to apply a different rule, okay? So notice you have 4 to the third, c to the third raised to the third, and d squared raised to the third, and then 5 to the third, okay? So you end up with 4 to the third, which is 64. On your calculators, it's going to be 4 caret key 3. And then here it's 5 caret key 3. Enter after each one. And then 3 times 3 here is the 9 you get here, and 2 times 3 here is the 6 you get here. Again, please keep in mind you can pause or replay anytime you need to. And so there's your answer. Now the 64 over 25 does not reduce down because 4 over 5 didn't reduce down. All right. Okay, so now here's one for you to do. Okay, again, assuming that P and Q are not equal to 0. So pick out your answer, and you should answer that one. Okay, and so now here we're moving on to our zero exponent property. Basically, it says anything raised to the 0 power is 1. Doesn't matter what it is. It's anything raised to the 0 power is 1. Okay, so most of you found that pretty easy. Most students do. So now you look, see everything in the parentheses is raised to 0 power. You're assuming that m and n are not equal to 0. And so what you see there, it's raised to the 0 power, it's 1. So your answer is just 1. Didn't matter what's in the parentheses, it just matters that you have the 0 outside here. Okay, now let's go. Now we're going to do this again, but now notice this one is slightly different because only the m is raised to the 0 power, not the n. So instead of the whole thing just being 1, it just means that this piece goes to 1. Again, m and n are not equal to 0. And so what you're going to do here, that m to the 0 power changes to 1, okay? So then what you're left with is n to the third over n to the second. Now you're using your quotient of powers. So you're dividing, which means you're going to subtract the exponents. So you're going to do 3 minus 2, which is 1. Okay, so then your answer is n. Okay, because n to the first power, you just write n. Okay, so far so good. Hopefully that's making sense. I think if you've done the previous lesson, it does make sense. So again, here is your answer. So I just need you to pick that one out. Okay. Now, this one's a little bit different because keeping in mind only the x is raised to the 0 power. So again, pick that answer out. Okay, now we're going to talk about negative exponents. And so basically what you're doing with a negative exponent, if it's in the top, you move it to the bottom. If it's in the bottom, you move it to the top. So here, this is considered being in the top, so it goes to the bottom. Here's the formula. It's in the top, goes to the bottom. So what you really want to do is, let's show you this. I want to highlight the parts that I would write down if I were you and I was trying to do this. I would write this down and I would write that down. Okay? Because that's the part that matters. That's just being honest. That's the part that matters. And then these are just examples of that. Okay? So let's go ahead and let's do a little bit of that. Let's clear that, sorry. Okay, so now here you have, you're going to simplify this. Assume that no denominator is equal to 0, so that means you're not going to have any zeros in the bottom. Okay, so this is negative, which means it goes down here. This is negative, it means it goes up here. The y is positive, so we're not going to change that at all. Okay, so let's do that. And so you notice they just moved the x to the negative 4 down here, and it becomes x to the positive 4. And then they have z to the negative 6 here. Well, they move it up, so it's z to the positive 6. And then you're done. Notice they're in alphabetical order. And also notice that there's nothing that's going to cancel. You only had each variable one time. Okay? Okay. So now here we go with another one. Okay? Again, you're assuming that the P, Q, and R are not equal to 0. Somehow that didn't get printed up. But that's okay. Okay, so what they did is they separated each one of these. Now notice you didn't have an R on the top, you only had it on the bottom, so they put 1 in as a placeholder, okay? And so when you look at this, you do 75 divided by 15, which is 5. you're going to have 3 minus 5, -5 minus a -4. So don't get that confused. Make sure you have the right number of negatives in. And then you just have r to the 8th on the top because it's just over, it was underneath 1. So you just move that up, okay? Now, when you do that, you end up with 5, p to the -2, q to the -1, r to the 8th. Now, what's wrong with this is that you have negatives exponents in your problem, so you need to get rid of that. So both of these are going to go to the bottom of the fraction. So how I'm going to write that is, you notice you have 5, sorry about that, 1 over p squared, 1 over q, and then r to the 8th. All right, and then basically what happens is the r and the 5 and the r to the 8th are on the top, and the p squared and the q are on the bottom. And there is your answer. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Should be one for you to do. And it is. Okay, now keep in mind you just want to move this to the bottom and this to the top. So it's pretty simple. Okay, then here's another one where you're going to have some negatives and you need to fix those. Again, feel free to pause if it takes you a couple minutes to look at these. Alrighty, we're just going to go over to the next one. Now, these are order of magnitudes. We're not doing any of these, so we're literally going to stop at the previous problem. So we will see you on the next video.